Ladies and gentlemen, all rise. Court is back in session. Welcome to another exciting episode of The Devil's Due. I am your host, Carl Duty. With me, as always, is the only man to ever beat Ozymandias in a game of tic-tac-toe, Mr. Drew Celestino.
Well, yeah. See, he tried to pull that Gordian knot strategy on me, and I wasn't having it.
Just didn't work, huh?
No, not in tic-tac-toe.
There you go.
Yeah.
How's it going, sir?
It goes. It goes.
Here we are back again after a week off.
Yeah.
So
we were busy.
Let us get to the opening statements. How have your weeks been?
Pretty good. I'm trying to think where to begin. It's been kind of exciting, kind of not. But if we go back far enough to the last episode, we had some milestones. So we had Cinco de Mayo, which we celebrated at your place on Cuatro de Mayo.
Yes.
And that consisted of tacos, margarita for myself. No one else partook, but that's okay. And
there's a lot of people there to partake. I think the Cinco de Mayo party might go by the wayside in the future. That's fair. It was once a heavily tended event, and now it's just kind of
adulthood and kids and life tend to put the damper on certain historical gatherings. So we'll see how that goes in the future.
Yeah,
but I had a good time anyway. We watched Machete Kills, which I had not seen.
No,
it was as advertised.
It was awesome.
I think I might prefer the first one.
Well, I mean the first one.
But the second one definitely leans into the, okay, this is just over the top insanity, so we're just going to roll with it, which is fair. And then obviously you could tell that was going to be the case when they showed the trailer for the air quotes third one before the second one. And it's like, okay, what is happening?
Machete Kills in space.
Yes. Exactly. So that was something. I believe
Mel Gibson, great villain.
I mean, life imitates art. Art imitates life, if you will. Let's see. On actual Cinco de Mayo, I had a pretty good time. Partook. Maybe I Cinco de Mayo'd pretty hard. You might say.
You Cinco'd your de Mayo.
I Cinco de Mayo'd. So it was a good time. Had a good time. Me and the old man up at More Pat, and tequila is might be my new vice, Carl. I'm not gonna lie. Especially good stuff that goes down easy, dangerously easy. So anyway, that week though, also on that Wednesday, we had the Ring of Honor NJPW War of the World show at Riverworks, and I love wrestling shows. They're always a good time, no matter what. But NJPW didn't really send the house.
It didn't send the A card.
No, I don't want to call it the B or I don't want calling it the C listers is kind of demeaning, but I mean that's kind of what they are. There were some borderline B listers on there, like Evil and Sonata came, and they're great, and they got a huge. They probably had the biggest reaction of the night outside of Marty Skrull, and
so
PCO.
Basically, NJPW sent the early and mid card talent.
They sent a mid card, not the opening acts, but the mid card acts. I would say they sent, and not even like the upper mid card, kind of like just a solid mid card.
Yeah.
So, and then it's frustrating because
keep in mind we are saying mid card, not mid guard.
No, it's frustrating because I have to watch Evil and Sonata wrestle these two guys from from ROH. These guys I forgot what they're in Lifeblood, and they're perfectly cromulent wrestlers. They're and I'm someone out there trying to like calling me a jerk and saying I'm slagging these guys. I'm not. They're great. They're good. They're good talent. But Evil and Sonata, each of them have had 4- and 5-star matches with Okada in the last 18 months. I've seen these guys work.
Yep.
They can work. So when I have to watch them sell and make it look like these other guys are putting in a good effort and they're really struggling to take down these ROH guys, it doesn't ring home for me. Because these guys are, no pun intended with my All Elite Wrestling shirt on, because our NJPW is not All Elite, but, Evil and Sonata are elite. I'm just saying it. And I'm not going to watch them, sell for these other guys. Like, come on, man, this should be.
Yeah.
I'm not advocating squash matches, but it was way too competitive for what it was. But I digress. I still had a great time. But I got to tell you, Ring of Honor is not looking promising going forward.
So, I mean, as you mentioned, you're wearing an All Elite Wrestling shirt.
Yeah.
When are they going to start doing stuff?
Okay, so allegedly,
Like, are they gonna
television
have a
is going to be
TV
announced.
show?
Yes, they're going to have a TV show, and allegedly it's going to be announced tomorrow. I don't know anything else besides that, and nothing is official.
Of what, when, where?
TNT live, and that's all we know.
How funny would it be if they went to USA?
They won't go to USA. That's where Vince lives.
I thought USA was. Oh, they're just losing SmackDown.
Correct. Raw will still be Monday night on USA. So TNT though, Turner Broadcasting, former home of WCW.
Yep.
Things are full circle. They will not be going head to head with WWE, so don't look for that.
That's probably not.
They have to establish themselves first before that even gets remotely a possibility. But anyway, still fun, but man, Ring of Honor is in trouble. If NJPW ever does, like, say, you know what, we're cutting ties. Oh boy, Ring of Honor is
long.
They're
for the world.
screwed. They are screwed because their guys are just. No one cares about their guys, man.
Yeah,
their guys come out, the crowd kind of goes like, eh. Outside of Jay Lethal, who has been there a long time, and he's a ring veteran. Everyone knows who Jay Lethal is. He's been around. So people pop for Jay Lethal. Flip Gordon, because he used to be tied in with the Elite before they left, so they pop for Flip Gordon. And Marty Scurll. Marty Scurll also part of the Elite. And as soon as his contract's up in a few months, bye-bye ROH, he's going to All Elite. And, once those guys are gone...
So, question.
Yes.
You've got WWE,
yes,
AEW, and Ring of Honor.
And Impact.
Okay, so there's more domestic brands.
Yeah, Impact used to be called TNA. We LOL TNA. That was a meme for a long time because they were just a joke for a long time. But in the last year or two, they've kind of gotten their act together. I don't watch their show, but like every time I see what they're doing right now, it's like that looks really good. They got a lot of the top guys from Lucha Underground are there now. So like Brian Cage is there. The Lucha Brothers, now they're going to be going to AEW, but they've been in Impact for a little while. Yep. Johnny Morrison, Johnny Mundo, Johnny Impact, whatever you want to call him. Taya Valkyrie, Rodney Mack, the Mac.
The Mac.
Yes.
Love the Mac.
And an up-and-comer, their women's division has always been strong. Even back when they were TNA, their Knockouts division, as they call it, has always been really good, and it's still really good. It's anchored now by Tessa Blanchard, Taya Valkyrie, and Jordan Grace, and like... I'm not going to lie. On paper, it's like I should probably be watching the show because there's a lot of talent over there.
Do you see a world in where like they merge with ROH for purposes of survival?
I don't know how. I don't know. The thing with ROH is it's owned by Sinclair Broadcasting, so they got. You don't know about Sinclair Broadcasting?
I don't know what it is.
Well, Sinclair Broadcasting is a
Give us the bullet points. We got a long show.
Multi-billion-dollar right-wing media company.
Okay.
And they own television stations all over the country. And they just bought up a whole bunch of Fox affiliates now that Fox is getting out of the TV game, more or less.
Yeah.
So Sinclair is, they were already big, and now they're getting bigger. They own Ring of Honor, but they don't really involve themselves too much in Ring of Honor, but they're still owned by... Sinclair. So as long as they've got that kind of backing, I don't know if they would ever really go under. Yeah. It just depends on how much they mean to Sinclair, which doesn't appear to be much, but it's cheap. The way a lot of these TV outfits look at wrestling, for them, it's cheap content, which is weird because wrestling shows are actually kind of expensive to put on.
Yeah.
But to a TV network, it's apparently cheap content that fills time.
Well, I mean, it's kind of probably falls into that reality TV in a roundabout
to a degree.
way.
I mean, you're not think about
and that's always going to be cheaper than like shows or whatnot.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to pay script writers, a full crew, catering.
I'm guessing one episode
directors,
of
writers, etc.
Law and Order, whatever, is more expensive to produce than one episode of Raw.
Probably.
Yeah.
Don't quote me on that, but I would assume that's correct. So anyway, wrestling, yay, that was fun.
We should maybe one show in the not too distant future, do I know you're adverse to lists, but do like the top 5 media brands or like intellectual properties or whatnot that need to be owned by someone else.
Ring of
Honor,
we
DC.
Yeah. Oh God, we'll talk about that. Well, you can take Fantastic Four and X-Men off that list now. So so there's room.
Yes. Okay.
So that was cool. After that, not a lot. I mean, weekends are weekends. There was a lot going on here and there. Mother's Day was cool. We had a little thing here. My sister came over with my niece, my little baby niece, and Grant got to hang out with her. He was hilarious with her, by the way. He was like freaking out over seeing another infant. It was kind of funny.
I'm not the only one.
Oh, dude, it was hilarious. He was like freaking out, like, "Oh my God, look at her!" But that really that kind of covers it. Other than that, I'm back in the gym, doing pretty good there. My new guitar, after 2 years of waiting, finally arrived.
Cool.
It's glorious.
Is it this one here?
It's the one that's over there.
Oh, okay.
The green strap kind of hiding. It's fantastic. It is called Metroid, and it's amazing.
Have you hooked up to the Penny Marshall app yet?
The
amp, the Penny Marshall amp.
There's no I don't have any Marshall amps here.
Don't you remember? Well,
that's a cabinet, not an amp.
What's the difference?
An amp is the thing on top. That's an amplifier. The cabinet just is speakers that you plug into.
But have you hooked up to the Penny Marshall speaker?
No.
Okay.
I've hooked it up to the Mesa rig. That's my rig. The other one's my dad's. That's here for show until he picks it up. So anyway, I've actually started tracking some guitars for the Long Cold Dark record. I've got quite a bit done on one song. It's going to be a process with the lad and doing this. So even though I can do it silently, it's still hard just to have uninterrupted blocks of time where I can come down here and work.
Yeah. We're going to talk about that in a bit too.
Yeah. So anyway, that more or less catches us up to right here, right now.
Cool.
How have your weeks been? Seeing as we've spent some of that together.
My weeks have been good. Like you mentioned, Cinco de Mayo, we had fun there. Mother's Day was good. I got Julie a hammock for the outside. She's wanted one for a long time, so I got her one. So she was very happy.
Did you get it in the hammock district?
No. Got off Amazon.
Oh, Hank Scorpio would be very disappointed.
Let's see. This past Saturday, we had Duty Dice Day again.
We did.
We had a great turnout to Duty Dice Day, including you and Jen.
Yeah, we made it out, man. We had the day off together, and it was like, hey, let's go. Yeah. Especially since we didn't do game night the night before.
It was a lot of... Why didn't we do game night the night before?
Jen had doggy stuff to do. I was watching the boy, and then when she finally did get home, she allowed me about 3 hours to come down here and play guitar. Yeah, which I took advantage of.
Cool. So yeah, it was fun. It did not go as late as most Duty Dice Days have gone. We were done by about 7:30, 8 o'clock at night.
Okay,
starting from noon. But it was good. My friends Greg came out. You missed Greg. He came out. My friend Corey came out. We played Dice Forge, and then I introduced Corey to Key Forge. So there was a lot of forging going on early on.
Yes.
And then Corey busted out his Godfather game.
We played the Godfather game.
For you guys show up.
Yeah,
I really enjoyed the Godfather.
It was pretty good.
It seemed like a nice combination of like Blood Rage and Knoxford.
Sort of.
Yeah.
I thought I was doing pretty well, but Corey was stealthily stashing $5 bills in that briefcase. I didn't know what was going on.
That would be me, sir.
Did you win the game?
Yes, I did.
Oh, sorry. I was paying attention to him for some reason.
Everybody was fighting over them territories. I'm like, I'm just gonna get this little bit of money here, a little bit of money there.
That's kind of what I was trying to do.
Yep. So, but I really like the mechanics of the game, and the cards are very flavorful and whatnot, and really kind of embraced the source material.
Yeah,
so that was a
definitely.
lot of fun. I think that's pretty much it for my weeks.
All right.
Dear listeners, if you would like to tell us about your weeks, if you'd like to send us any emails or statements to be read on the show, you can do so at the following locations. You can find us on the social medias. On Twitter at Devils Do Pod. You can like our page on Facebook at facebook.com/DevilsDoPod. You can email us at thedevilsdopod@gmail.com, or you can find all these resources available to you on our website, thedevilsdopodcast.com. Drew, that being said, we do have some emails to catch up on.
Cool.
Starting with the last week's emails that unfortunately we didn't get to. First up from good friend Adam, who you guys ran into at Duty Dice Day.
Yes.
Then again, this email is from last week, so good evening, amigos. Hope these questions find you well. Drew,
Hey.
how is that toy song coming along for Carl?
Toy song.
You know about me having all the toys.
I can't sing it on the show. It's too vulgar.
Where do I go? Oh, that's another thing I did over there. I saw on Cinco de Mayo before the party started.
Yeah, I couldn't make it.
I went and saw the 30th.
Yeah.
Folks, we're old.
Yes.
30th anniversary screening of the 1989 Batman.
I wanted to go.
It was great. It was really great. It really holds up well. I tweeted and Facebook post that I'm in the theater to see, Batman 1989 for its 30th anniversary screening. If I wanted to, in the same theater, I could also see Captain Marvel, Avengers Endgame, or Shazam. What a wonderful time we live in.
This is the times we live in now.
Yes. Yeah, it was great. It was a lot of fun. There was a really cool little intro by Ralph Garman, and despite the film's problems, it still holds up very well.
That's awesome.
Would have liked to have gone see Batman Returns because they were doing all four of the 80s, 90s Batmans in theaters. But I just couldn't make it out for that one.
Returns is interesting. It's an interesting movie.
Yeah, to say the least.
Yeah.
It's got some. It's like the first one. It's got some really great things about it.
Yeah.
Then it's got some things that just don't work.
Yes, that's all fair to say.
Yeah.
I think the thing that bothered me most about it was just the radical departure of the Gotham design of the first movie.
That
always bothered me.
Gotham in the first movie, there are spots where you could tell
it's a soundstage.
It's a soundstage, and there are spots where you could tell it was filmed on location somewhere.
Yeah.
Batman Returns, it's all set.
Yes.
And it's not great looking. It's designed well.
It is, but I think it's the design that I didn't like.
But it makes the film seem much smaller.
Well, definitely. And I think the thing with Returns that bothered me, though, is like the palette and the look of Gotham in the first movie is very rusty looking.
Yeah.
And kind of it looks very lived in.
Yeah.
And worn and dirty. And then Returns, it's very silver and bluish.
Very like black, white, silver, blue.
And I mean, you could argue, well, Tim Burton, of course, but I think they should have maybe stuck with the visual language of the first movie a little more.
Yeah.
But it didn't quite work out that way. I guess. I mean, Anton Firth, the designer of the first movie, he died, so that's why they went with a different direction. But they kept the Batmobile at least.
They did.
Best Batmobile.
It is hands down.
Anyway.
Okay. When going back to Adam's question, when I finish Hollow Knight in the year 2022, what game should I take a spin on solo adventure on the Switch?
Oh man, by then it's going to be so many more. I don't even know where to tell. I don't even know what to say. I've heard great things about The Messenger, the Ninja Gaiden S game that kind of goes between 8-bit and 16-bit.
Okay.
I've heard great things about Celeste, which is like it's a platformer, and like your only move is basically a jump. So everything you do has to be timed jumps. And from what I hear, it's you die a lot, but it's not frustrating, and it's actually like a very rewarding game. So I hope there's that. If he hasn't played Axiom Verge, I would recommend Axiom Verge. It's another Metroidvania game, but it's more 8-bit in style than 16, but with wide. It's more like Shovel Knight than it is like a 16-bit game. But Metroidvania.
Again, just Shovel Knight?
Shovel Knight. Oh, of course. If you haven't played Shovel Knight, play Shovel Knight. Shovel Knight is incredible. And then next month. Oh, I'm excited. So excited. Bloodstained Ritual of the Night comes out next month. So, did you see the new trailer for that, by the way?
I did not.
So, we're not going to talk about this like in the news ad verbatim or ad nauseum, so I'm just going to tell you here. People were apparently complaining online about the air quotes bland graphics and attacks in the original footage that they showed some months ago. So this video opens up and it's all these user comments complaining about the game and the visuals, and then they show a new trailer. Like they show Iga sitting at the table. Iga's the producer.
Yeah.
And he's like, okay, I hear you. Like, in Japanese or whatever. And then they show gameplay footage and they show old versus new, and they completely I'm not going to say revamped, but they addressed every complaint. They polished it big time. It looks incredibly better. And I didn't think personally that it looked bad to begin with, but it looks better now.
Nice.
So, yeah, I'm looking forward to that a lot.
Cool. Speaking of Ninja Gaiden, jumping back really quick, you got to play Ninja Gaiden arcade game for the first time ever.
Oof.
The game that is harder than the Ninja Gaiden Nintendo game.
It's harder, but not in a more fun way. It's like a completely different game.
It is. It's
like your attacks are totally different.
Once you kind of get comfortable with mechanics and control and kind of learn what you can do in the game, it gets much better.
Sure.
It's still really freaking hard.
Oh, it was a quarter muncher, of course.
But to me, it's the superior version of the game.
Wow.
I always enjoyed the arcade more than... Now, I'm not saying the NES version is bad.
No, it's a classic.
Just saying for me personally, if I have to choose between two, the arcade version.
All right, that's fair.
All right. Carl, now that you've played X-Wing 2.0 for a few months now, what are your thoughts? Has it improved the game? What do you miss from 1.0 other than playing with me on the regular? I do miss playing X-Wing with Adam. I really do. He's just not into it anymore, which is unfortunate. I do. What do I miss from 1.0? Nothing. Yeah, 1.0 towards the end was losing a lot of the fun aspect to it. So there's not really anything I miss from 1.0 that I can instantly think of.
All right.
Yes, 2.0, it's a better game. They've definitely improved the game. I don't think they've necessarily made the game they set out to make, because there are some things that are still in the game that probably shouldn't have been put back into the game this time around, but we'll see. The game has the potential now to change every 6 months or so, because there's very few stuff that's key to the ship that's actually printed on the cards now, so that they can change that in the numerous apps that you can use for the game. So yeah, 2.0 has been a lot of fun. Really enjoy it.
Cool.
Carl and Drew, now that Endgame is making all the money, I want to know, what is your top 5 movies in the Marvel Cinematic Universe? What about top 5 support? It's like,
I can't do
does
this.
Does he not listen to the show?
I can't do lists.
People, Drew doesn't like doing top 5 lists.
I mean, if you want me to name my 5 favorites, I can probably do that, and it's not going to be in any particular order, but I can try. And number 1 is always I'll give you my number 1. And number 1 is always going to be Captain America: The Winter Soldier. That is my favorite one.
Yep.
Below that, insert Marvel flick here. Where do I begin? Endgame is great. Infinity War is great. The original Avengers is great. Black Panther is great. Civil War is great. I love Spider-Man: Homecoming more than you do.
You do.
Thor Ragnarok is great. Both Guardians of the Galaxy movies are great.
Yes.
I mean, no Marvel films are bad, and I stand by that. Not one of them. Not
there
Iron
are
Man.
some that are weaker.
Yes.
But there are none that are bad.
No. Even Iron Man 2 and Thor 2 are good movies. I still like Iron Man 3.
I never understood the hatred for Iron Man 2. And nobody can give me a reason why they think it's bad.
I don't know why either.
Yeah, it's bad. I'm like,
no, it's really not, actually. It's pretty good.
Yeah, my favorite is Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2.
Yeah.
Because it's essentially a story about fathers and sons. But after that, just kind of like what you said there, it's like you can't, like, Captain America Winter Soldier, the original Iron Man.
Yeah.
I've always been a fan of the Incredible Hulk. They didn't like
they don't really acknowledge it, but they should, because it's not a bad movie.
Yeah,
Like,
I think the Hulk in the Incredible Hulk looks better than he did in the Avengers films.
oh, I can't get with that.
I think visually he looks better.
Different strokes.
Yeah, but yeah, sorry, Adam.
Big fan of Ruffalo Hulk.
We got well. No, I'm not saying like Edward Norton was bad because he wasn't. He was good.
Yeah.
But like,
no, I'm saying
Ruffalo.
the Ruffalo version of Hulk. I like how he looks kind of like Mark Ruffalo.
Yeah.
Especially in Endgame.
And he goes on, thanks for being a place to process my nerddom. Cheers, fellas.
Cheers. All the drinks. All the cheers.
All the cheers. All right. So thank you, Adam. Moving on to Mr. Cyrus Moore. Greetings, gentlemen. Hope you are well. I'd like to first thank Drew for a story last week about repairing controllers. It brought up some childhood memories. The SNES was a console of my youth, and my dogs loved to chew up the controller cords. Coming from a lower middle class family where there's no way where my parents would continually buy replacements, my dad worked a lot, but he was able to give me some pointers. Regardless, I still had to become an expert in splicing and soldering new wires if I had my SNES to be if I wanted my SNES to be any more than a paperweight.
Those are good life skills.
Yes. My question this week is actually my idea for how the MCU can incorporate mutants without having to pretend like they always existed but never did anything significant.
Okay.
Do you really think, and he puts it in quotations here, do you really think 4 billion people could be vaporized, ashed, and reconstituted 5 years later with none of them suffering any changes to their DNA? I mean, that's an interesting way to take on it.
See, the fundamental problem, and it's bigger than just the problem with this particular scenario where that would create mutants.
Yeah.
The big thing that they're going to have to kind of address in some way with the snap and and then the coming back.
Yeah.
That 5-year gap and all that is like that's a really defining moment that is going to impact people's lives going forward permanently in that universe.
Yeah.
So like it's going to be interesting to see how they kind of get around that or don't going forward.
I don't think after something like that life would just go back to what it was for the world.
And so like if you were then to incorporate the mutants into it, I don't like the idea that one event that they all share in common is like the thing that made them mutants. I feel like random selection, evolution, that's the big theme of the X-Men, and I think that should remain it that way. But it does get tricky when you say like, how do you argue that they've always been around? We just haven't seen them yet, So Marvel does have a bit of a hill to climb there. Yeah,
I think the most important thing to realize is that we're going to talk about this a little bit in the news. The Marvel Cinematic Universe going forward is going to be very different from the Marvel Cinematic Universe we have just kind of
definitely
seen a conclusion to.
For sure.
So we'll see what they do there.
Mm-hmm.
Cyrus, thank you very much for your question. As always, next on to back from the great beyond, Mr. J. Gelsomino.
Oh, my God.
We must offer our heartfelt congratulations to Mr. J. Gelsomino. He and his wife, Samantha, welcomed their new baby girl, Nola, to the world.
Yeah.
So I hope you guys are doing well. And it looks like we have an answer to that sentiment in the first question. Drew and Carl, what the hell were Samantha and I thinking?
I mean, you guys maybe should have asked us first, and we could have told you. Probably not a good idea.
I've always found it prudent when a major life decision is at hand to seek wise and godly counsel.
That's us.
Sure.
Yeah. Trust. Come on. Have some faith in yourself.
I'm hesitant to call myself either.
I'm very happy for Jay, honestly.
Yeah, we're both happy for Jay. Drew, who do you have winning the Super J Cup? Is this like a competition between
NJPW.
all the Jays in the world?
No.
If there is, my money's on, well, Jay, I love you, but my money's on Jason Statham.
To be honest, I mean, I could just do that in my own life because I know like 47 Jasons.
The J Draft.
The J Draft? Oh, God, don't put me in that spot. Who's going to win the Super J Cup? Pick 'em.
The Repo Man.
Pick 'em.
The Brooklyn Brawler.
I got nothing. Pick 'em.
Corporal Kirshner.
It could go to anybody this year.
Honky Tonk Man.
The more prudent question: who's going to win the G1? And I definitely have wild theories about that.
Nikolai Volkov.
These guys are all dead.
They're still going to win.
In our hearts. In our hearts, they're going to win.
Carl, does anybody actually miss me at work? Did everyone pass their phone test? Yes, everyone did pass their phone test. And yes, sir, you are sorely missed at work. Please hurry back. All right. So that about does it for the questions. And before we get to the news, trust me, folks, there's a lot of news to get to. It's going to be a long episode, folks. I'm just preparing you right now.
Someone out there, it's already long.
So how long have we been? Like, what, 45 minutes already? That's not too bad.
About 30.
Yeah, that's even better.
Okay.
So we've been thinking and talking, and we've mentioned it on shows past, kind of the future of our show here and what we do here. And we've been kind of, we had a couple different options in front of us now with, Daredevil finishing. Next week, we're going to finish up Daredevil. And we, a couple different things, and we just kind of sat down and talked, and, it was always the thought of rebranding and going forward, and then an opportunity for other things adjacent to that came up. But we had both, we both kind of forwarded the idea of, whatever we decide to do next, we need to take a little bit of a break. And when we were having that discussion, I'll be the first one to admit I was the one who put the question forward because I felt that it needed to be asked, was that should we just kind of call it a day with the show? And, just kind of say, hey, we did what we did, close up shop, see you guys later, thanks for hanging out. Because I feel like the Devil's Due, as it is kind of right now, has kind of run its course. I feel like we've kind of said everything we kind of set out to say in the beginning of this. And then, I posed that question to you, and we talked about it. We talked about it a couple weeks ago before game night. And I think where we kind of landed is that after next week, we're going to go on a hiatus. We're going to take a break. Might be for a month, might be a little bit longer. And then, there's still going to be a show. And it's still probably going to be called The Devil's Due, but it's going to be not as frequent as you guys are probably used to. And it ultimately just comes down to we both have responsibilities in this life, ever-growing responsibilities that require more and more attention, and they're good responsibilities to have and things we want to give attention to. And it's not that we don't want to do the show. It's just that, we don't want to do a show that we're not fully invested in. And we want to make sure we're giving due time to these other, I don't want to say more important. Well, spoilers, ladies and gentlemen, if you're listening to the show, yes, our kids are more important than you. I'm sorry. Our families are more important than you. We love you all to death if you're listening, but our families are more important than you.
Someone just unsubscribed. What do you mean?
Yes. I'm your family. So that's, I don't know what you want to kind of chime in.
You kind of said it all. The things are just more hectic than ever, and rather than come out here and just do it out of obligation, I just feel like we had a goal, and we had a theme that we stuck to, and that kind of has obviously gone away. So do we ride it out for the sake of it? That feels a little forced, and I don't think that would be fair to us, and I don't think it would be very good content either for you, the listener. So a definite breather is necessary. And that's not to say that there aren't things on the horizon that I'm eager to probably talk about. Because another part of my own personal kind of want to step away for a little while is it is harder and harder for me to keep up with all the things happening. And when you are expected to be an opinion haver about all the things, I have less and less of a real opinion on all the things, and I don't want to just tell you how to feel about stuff if I really don't feel anything.
Yeah.
So we're living in a gloriously saturated time of geek content. And I can't possibly follow all of it.
Yeah.
So I pick and choose my battles, and the rest I kind of, is kind of water under the bridge, and we'll see where it lands. But there are things coming up that have my attention, which we'll talk about very shortly, actually, in this episode.
I think after next week, you probably won't hear from us till Spider-Man. We'll pop in and do
July-ish.
do a review on that. After that, though, we may be off until this new Watchmen series.
That's the big one for me, which we're going to talk about.
We're both looking at that. And also,
we could leave with that if you want, but
no, we still got some news to get through.
Okay.
But after that, there's a question of unfinished business with the Star Wars universe, with the Rise of Skywalker.
Rise of Skywalker's coming.
We've done Force Awakens and we've done Last Jedi, so
we'll be there for the end.
We'll be there for that.
Also, don't forget that this summer, probably after Far From Home comes out, I would fully expect Marvel to formally announce the air quotes untitled films on the slate for Phase 4. So I'm sure that's going to open up a lot of doors that we're going to want to have some chats about. So,
So, we're not going away. We're just kind of taking a break. We're going to pop in every once in a while and say hi. It's
with the advent of social media, man. You can find us and chime in anytime you want, and we'll get back to you. We'll talk.
I want to give, I'm sure Drew shares this, a supreme, heartfelt thank you to those of you who have listened, whether you've been with us from day one or you just found us recently. If you just found us recently or really digging the show, I'm sorry.
Well, there's 100 and some odd episodes you can go back and listen to.
You can go back and listen to all the good stuff. But definitely a heartfelt thank you to everyone who has supported us, everyone who's listened to us over the past couple of years we've been doing this. And I think we're both in a really good place with this decision, and I want to thank you, because again, we've talked about before. I kind of dragged you into this kicking and screaming.
Sort of,
I had to put you into a full Nelson lock to get you to agree to do a family friendly show. And you met me where I wanted to be on a lot of this stuff, and this show is just as much what it has become. More so probably because of you than because of me.
Oh, so stop. You're welcome. It's my pleasure. Actually, no, it's probably your pleasure. It's both of our pleasures. It's been fun. It's been fun. You dragged me in and I was reluctant, but no, it's been a great time. So we have one more of these in us, and then we'll take a little break, but we look, go
on a walkabout.
Yeah, there you go. I'm going to go find Paul Hogan.
You're going to be like, just kind of walk the earth.
Sure, like Kane from Kung Fu. Don't worry about it, man. It's all good. We're still here. We're happy. Things are good, and we will be around. If you know where to look for us, you can find us. We're here for you. So
we'll be around.
Yeah.
So by all means, get those questions in for that last.
Yeah. Seeing as we have one more show, you better send in questions and comments and stuff, y'all.
Yep. All right. So
where do you want to begin?
Let us go to the news. Some of these we can just kind of skim over.
Well,
I'm going to do the stuff we can just kind of shoot over fairly quickly. Okay. So, Drew, did you know they're remaking Final Fantasy VII?
I did know that.
It was announced
a couple years ago.
3 years ago, I think?
Yeah, it's been a little while.
And we've heard nothing until this past week where a trailer dropped?
Well, at one point, maybe a year-ish ago, they announced that they weren't happy with the progress, and they sacked the team that was on it and brought it in-house.
Ooh.
So this has now been a year since then, and we got a new trailer finally. Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, look. As Alan and myself are playing Final Fantasy VII again on Switch now.
Yeah.
I'm knee deep in this, and I think I brought it up on the show a few weeks ago, where I'm rubbing up against it. Phrasing, where it's clearly a game, and it was made at a time when narrative storytelling, and a more cinematic presentation were like a new thing.
Yeah.
And they went all in on that, and it's great, but it's also rubbing up against the technical limitations and the genre conventions that Square was traditionally attached to, that being turn-based RPGs, random encounters, that sort of thing. And it makes for a very disjointed kind of game in a way. It's still a great game, but it's also a very odd game. So they're remaking it, and they're making it look all super pretty and nice, and voice acting, and it's no longer going to be turn-based. It's going to be real-time action combat, and I'm not sure how I feel about those changes, but maybe it'll work, maybe it won't. But I don't like. I'll be honest with you. As cool as it looks, and it does look cool. Like, I'm not. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah,
the world of Final Fantasy VII is very. People love it for a reason. It's very.
Square makes pretty games.
Yeah,
that has always been a staple of them.
And not just
whether or not the game is good or bad. You can always count on it being visually beautiful.
And not only that, I think 7 resonated for a lot of reasons because it was so unique visually, and its world is very distinct. It's iconic at this point in a way. So seeing it, fully realized and rendered and, yada, yada. Yeah, it's exciting. But the real-time combat is a little scary to me as an old schooler. And I don't, as far as I know, their plan to release this it's not going to be Final Fantasy VII Remake, $60 at retail, here you go. No.
It's episodic.
Which leads me to believe, it'll be $40 for that first chapter, $30 for the second, $20 for the third, or something like that. So you get a nickel and dime me to get the whole game. And then there's the DLC component. What's that going to look like? Because it'll be there. Can I spend $30 to save Eris? Spoilers. I hope not, but I don't know. I don't know what to make of it.
You better call her Eris, not Aerith.
I could go either way there, but yeah, I kind of feel you.
Yeah, I mean, I played the original back in the day, and it was great. And I always did find the transition from like the CG cutscenes to the block characters very kind of jarring.
It is, but
so I like to see kind of like the uniformity of it now.
Use your imagination.
Well, I did.
But like I said,
yeah.
it was pushing the boundaries at a time when they were still sort of hindered, by technical limitations.
So my interest in this is tepid at best, and it's all going to depend on price point.
Yeah,
whether or not I get involved. Okay, so Drew, Mortal Kombat 11 came out recently. It's enjoying success as we are currently in a new golden age of fighting games.
Seems to be beloved thus far.
And success breeds new things many times, and looks like we are getting a new Mortal Kombat film produced by Aquaman and Fast and Furious director James Wan.
That's I'm not gonna lie. That's a big get.
A couple of months back, I went back and watched the original Mortal Kombat film.
Yeah,
and
I was just talking with someone today about this.
The visual effects look terrible. They're really. It's like, hey, remember what 90s CG looked like?
Looked like this.
They
all couldn't be Jurassic Park.
Yeah. And the film did commit some very grave sins, like we never got a Scorpion Sub-Zero fight.
No,
but for the most part, it holds up, and it's good.
It's a fine film. It's not a great film. It's a fine film.
For what it is, it's good.
The fight scenes are tremendous.
Yes,
and honestly, like if you're going to a movie like this, that you better deliver in that department, and they really did.
Yeah, the fight choreography was way ahead of anything being done at the time. Kerry Tagawa as Shang Tsung is great. I love the fact that we're getting, DLC of him as Shang Tsung in the game.
Sure.
But yeah, I'll be interested to see what they do with this.
James Wan's on board, so that's gonna
the action will be solid.
Action's gonna be solid. If anything else, it'll be the effects are gonna be better. The question I have about it is what are the studio's expectations for it?
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is, let's be honest, the original Mortal Kombat film, fine and all.
Yep.
But they couldn't really give you the full experience of Mortal Kombat because they stuck to a PG-13 rating. And in this day and age, do they have to do that again? I don't know. My instinct says yes because they want that box office, but they also know that the property is the property, and they might say, you know what, we're throwing caution to the wind. Let's make it rated R and give you all the violence that you expect from a Mortal Kombat game.
I think that, because of movies like Deadpool and Logan, there's a strong chance this will be rated R, and I hope that's the way they go because that's
Mortal Kombat, man.
You want to make a PG-13 fighting game movie? Make Street Fighter.
Yeah, for real.
You want to make an R-rated one? Make Mortal Kombat.
True that.
So yeah, cool. Look forward to that.
It's got my curiosity. My curiosity for sure.
Just reported today, Disney has gained full control of Hulu.
Well, there's all your Fox movies.
Yep. I really think Disney's kind of going to use this as an outlet for more adult-themed media.
Yep.
And keep the more family-friendly stuff to the Disney Plus app. I think it's a smart move.
It's the most obvious thing in the world.
Yep. Gives them a platform to bring back Marvel Knights.
If they so choose, yeah.
Fingers crossed.
And that also kind of explains those show announcements on Hulu Plus.
Yeah.
Or on Hulu, like Ghost Rider and Hellstrom.
Ghost Rider not being...
Leave Robbie Reyes alone. He's fine.
Johnny Blaze and Danny Ketcher, go home.
And before Danny Ketch, there was only Johnny Blaze. And someone out there was grumbling about that too. But then we grew to love Danny Ketch. And someone out there right now, like you, is now grumbling about Robbie Reyes. Into the kid.
It just looks wrong with a car.
I like the car.
It just looks wrong with a car.
Look, man. Motorcycle, horse, car. He's riding in something.
Woolly mammoth.
Yes, exactly.
I mean, all right, the woolly mammoth was cool.
See?
Okay, so, and kind of in the lines of that, basically Disney had a big, this is what's coming down the pipe. Meeting.
Yep.
And we got two things kind of confirmed for us. One, the next, like we mentioned earlier, the next wave of Marvel films will be announced some point this summer.
Yes, sir.
Cool. Awesome. Can't wait to see what you guys have. The second is that the next chapter in Star Wars, the next film chapter, will be the trilogy done by the guys who are currently showrunning Game of Thrones, Benioff and Weiss.
Yeah, people have opinions on that right now.
I'm just going to, because I know you don't watch.
I don't.
People are wanting things that don't really work in the story and things that have happened over the past couple episodes. If you look, you've seen the seeds of those things happening for a long time now, but people don't want that. They want their flash over their substance. And also I think they are living in a post-Endgame glow where we just saw a 10, 11-year narrative completed with dang near perfection.
Again, I don't watch Game of Thrones. We know this.
Yeah.
However, is it fair for these people to say these guys were praised and got the Star Wars gig based on the success of a show that the material for which was provided to them? All they had to do was adapt it competently. And then once that content ran out, they had to go it alone and figure it out. And then since that point, people have been underwhelmed. Are they wrong to feel that way?
I don't think that's accurate. I think
that's what happened.
Not necessarily. I think
that's exactly what there was. There were books, then there were no books.
Right, because HBO paid the author George R.R. Martin all the money to not publish the last book because HBO's smart.
He's not done yet.
It's done. HBO
he insists it's not. But
yes, he insists it's done while he's counting his money.
Okay.
HBO knew they had the people who liked the show, but they didn't have all the people like the books. How do you get the people like the books? You give them stuff they don't have yet by giving them the end before they can
I think
read
you're
the books.
you're overthinking this.
You're
way overthinking that.
It'll be fine. I think the leading rumor, and how I am for rumors and whatnot, leading rumor is that this will be an Old Republic story, which I'm totally fine with.
Okay.
The first things you ever see in Star Wars are a long time ago, so now it can be a long, long time ago.
I was going to say, are they going to open up a longer time ago?
Longer time ago. So yeah, that will be interesting to see. And what I really kind of hope is that like the Rian Johnson trilogy will pick up the characters, the new legacy characters from the current trilogy, Rey, Poe, Finn, and he'll get to do like his thing with them.
But this all doesn't begin until 2022, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
So the Rian Johnson trilogy is a ways off.
Unless they go back to annual release, in which case they could do alternating movies.
I kind of hope they don't, but it's not.
I feel you.
Yeah. Okay, so some comic news. Tom King, who's been absolutely killing it on Batman for the past couple of years, has teased that the end of his run, which is coming up in I think the next 15 issues are coming to the end of his run. It says it's going to bring major changes to the character, possibly for generations, and that these changes are so intense that they've had to be approved by Warner Brothers and AT&T.
Yeah, because kids, in case you didn't know, AT&T
your cell phone
owns
company
Batman.
owns Batman. I have made no secret about it. I've loved Tom King's run on Batman. It's been the best Batman I've read in years. And I'm not gonna lie, I'm a little worried about this. I know we were talking about this earlier, and everything in comics reverts back to the status quo, but it's just just stick the landing. You don't have to bring about a major change to a character. Just stick the landing.
Unless they feel he needs a shakeup, and maybe that's what they think. I don't even know what this means. It's comics, dude. So he can say I had to have these talks with the big powers that be. Yeah. It's comics. You could make some radical change, and then in a year, it could be undone.
Yep.
Nothing stays the same in comics, man, ever. Well, no,
Yeah.
I take that back. Nothing ever changes in comics. There's just the illusion of change, and then things are back to the status quo pretty quickly.
Yeah. That's where if they say, well, Batman kills now, I'm going to done with the character.
No, that's not Tom King style. I don't think you would do that.
Yeah.
I mean, if anything, what are they going to do? Kill Bruce? That's been done.
Yeah. A couple times.
I mean, what could they possibly do at this point that would be shocking?
That's the thing. It's why are you doing this? Are you doing this to tell a good story? Or are you doing this for shock factor? And I think really the only thing left is to say, well, he's just going to kill now. And
no, I didn't get there. I thought maybe that he would maybe publicly identify himself as Batman. Bruce Wayne outs himself to everyone. Bruce goes public. I don't think that's ever been done.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, so that's on DCN. Now over to the Marvel end. Jonathan Hickman,
he's back in Hickman form,
in mutant form.
Yeah.
He's taking over the entire X-Men line, and you're probably saying, Drew, Carl, that's 68 books.
Not for long, it ain't.
How is he going to do all that? Yeah, all those books are ending, and it's getting whittled down to 2 books
for now.
Power of X and House of X.
And then once those are 2 6-issue miniseries each.
Yep.
And then after which the line will relaunch. So there will be more books.
Yeah.
But I don't know what they are. And it seems like he has a big master plan going forward for the X-Men. Something which I might add, probably they have not had in a long time. And on top of that, I've voiced on this show before, the X-Men, to me, have been stale for a long time, personally speaking. Yes. They haven't felt important. They've been doing stuff, but none of it's really been... I'm very reluctant to say any of it's been good. turning Cyclops heel was kind of a move to me.
Yeah.
Sure, it made him, air quotes, interesting, but like if you didn't think he was interesting before, I think you were not trying very hard to read your comics. Let's see what he's got. If I know nothing else about Hickman, I haven't loved everything he's ever done, but he is a meticulous plotter. So he has this laid out. I'm sure he has a master plan, and it's going to be executed to the letter. Whether or not it's good, I don't know yet, but I know he's not just winging this. He's got a map, and it's going to be it is going to be done by the book.
So let me ask you this. Would you be willing to give these new books a chance?
Sure.
All right.
Yeah. I mean, show me the pitch first, I guess. But I mean, if anything else, and I've read this elsewhere, they said that this is like the most radical shake-up that the X-Men books have had since Grant Morrison came on when he did New X-Men in the early 2000s. Guess what? That got me back on board with the X-Men.
Yeah.
Because I had fallen out in the late 90s. I couldn't keep up with all that nonsense. It just got ridiculous. Like, Age of Apocalypse happened, and I was like, what?
Age of Apocalypse was great.
And I tuned out. And I never came back until they relaunched it with New X-Men.
I stuck around for a couple of years after Age of Apocalypse, but then it just got, like you said, it just got to be too much.
It's too much. And if you read the Morrison Manifesto, not to bring this back to Grant Morrison, but I'm just for comparison's sake, he points that out. He says this property is a mess, and I want to bring it back to a simple take. Here's my roster. Let's get back to the Claremont feel and focus on these characters and their investment in their lives, and not the melodrama and the crossovers and the really wild, wacky shenanigans that they all get into. And you know that was the way it was for a good little while. And then since then, Whedon's run was good too. So I would say after Whedon, X-Men have just kind of been floundering. Yeah. And then you find out, and obviously the average reader might not know this, but then you find out the corporate reasons for these things, and that being the Fox deal and Marvel deciding that they're not going to push any properties they don't control in cinema. And that's how you get the X-Men and the Fantastic Four in comics going away or being minimized and feeling like afterthoughts. Well, that's not an issue anymore, because now it's all back under Marvel's control. So now they can kind of put the X-Men back in a place of prominence, hopefully with a plan. And one that pushes them forward in a good way.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, hopefully.
I want the X-Men to be good.
The world's a better place when the X-Men are good.
Yeah.
I'm not going to lie.
Okay, so probably the two biggest things we're going to talk about news-wise this week are we got a couple trailers over the past couple weeks.
We did.
Starting with the newest Spider-Man Far From Home trailer.
Boy, man. Okay, number one, I got to tell you, I like how they did it.
Yeah. Spoilers.
They gave you the week, and then they gave you the trailer, and Tom Holland opens the trailer saying, this trailer is going to spoil the crap out of Endgame, so you haven't seen it, get out of here.
Yep.
Okay, well played. And then,
especially coming from him, who has spoiled so many, many things. To the point where he's not even getting scripts anymore.
That's funny. Well, we got a trailer.
We do have a trailer.
And it as advertised, that's a post-Endgame trailer.
Yes.
In fact, it's so post-Endgame that it makes me look back at the original trailer and like astonishment, like, wow, they really kept things under wraps.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
It's a lot of people are freaking out over this trailer because all the things that were said in the trailer. Multiverse. Mysterio is from
Earth, not our
Earth. I'm calling shenanigans.
I mean, it's Mysterio.
It's Mysterio, dude.
He's a liar.
Everything is about illusion.
Yep.
Everything is about illusion.
His first appearance, what did he do? He pretended to be a hero.
Yep.
To try and get people to like him, and he was actually the villain the whole time.
Yes.
So I think here's what I hope doesn't happen. I hope Marvel doesn't know that we know that and then keep him the good guy just to subvert our expectations. I don't know. We'll see. I got to tell you, I like everything I'm seeing though. It's exciting. There's a lot going on here, and it asks a lot of questions because the post snap is going to be addressed. Mm-hmm. People are gone now. Tony's gone. the kids are back from a 5-year gap that they didn't even know that they were in, and
Yep.
and like, you know, there's a lot here happening, and it is exciting. It is exciting.
I'm okay with most things in the trailer.
Yes.
Not so much a fan of the whole Mysterio kind of taking Iron Man's place as the mentor of Spider-Man. I'm not crazy about him knowing Peter is Spider-Man.
Yeah, it's the MCU, man. Everyone knows everybody.
And I guess MJ is.
She's MJ, but she's not MJ.
Yeah. Don't get me wrong.
He's too young to have met proper MJ yet.
I have no problem with that actress being MJ. I'm just not crazy about how they depicted her. Like, you need to fall in love with MJ from the moment you see her.
Yeah, I feel you. She was just kind of there, and it was awkward. And now it's like, oh no, now they're kind of a thing. Like, okay. And that's but my my counterpoint is that that's not MJ. That's an MJ. It's not the MJ.
The thing that leads me to believe it might be the MJ is that she knows he's Spider-Man.
Yeah, again, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter to you because Spider-Man's not your guy.
I like Spider-Man, and I like the comics where, you know, the old Parker Luck, and he's, you know, his secret identity is very important. But in the MCU, it just doesn't make a lot of sense for him to have one.
It makes sense for him to have one. Most other characters, no. His secret identity still makes sense.
And it's still fairly secret.
But other than that, it looks great.
I even like the new costume more than I thought I would on screen.
And I really am okay if the Iron Spider suit went away.
It's going away, so relax.
And not come back.
It's going away.
Not crazy about the all black stealth suit.
I like that one too.
Not, you know, the black and red one doesn't look horrible.
That's
but
the one
still,
I think looks pretty good.
Why? Just no.
Gotta sell them toys, man.
He's not Iron Man.
Nobody's on special missions from S.H.I.E.L.D., so he's got new toys.
So, okay. So yeah, that was that. We have our tickets.
Yes, we do.
Want to see it?
Yeah.
Very excited. Okay, other trailer came out. We didn't know this one was coming. It just kind of got dropped on us.
Yes.
We got a trailer for the new Watchmen HBO series, full trailer. Drew, go.
I mean, it has my attention, and I think that's what I have put out there on social media and whatnot. Yeah. I didn't know what this was going to be. And there's a million ways that it could have gone wrong, and there's a million ways it could have gone right. And it looks like they are going in a direction that is the right one, in my opinion. I've said it before. Watchmen is a very dense book, and it's very much a product of its form, that being a comic book. Adapting that into another medium, as I've said before, is nearly impossible because it changes the story itself. Is part of it, the form. And once you adapt the story to another medium, it's no longer the same. It's not saying the same things about the medium that it's being ingested in. So
keep in mind, you're probably going to be saying all this again.
Yes. Well, this is all part. Okay, let's just. I'm drawing the line here. This is part of our Watchmen discussion from here on out.
This episode, we're going to be discussing Watchmen, and basically, it's going to be Watchmen.
Yes.
The best and worst thing to ever happen in comics.
That's fair. That's a fair take. So they've gone in a new direction, and they're saying that this is. I think Lindelof said that the book is effectively the Old Testament, and it will be honored, and it will be referenced, and it will be the groundwork for everything. And then the show is basically the New Testament. Therefore, it's the sequel.
Yeah.
And everything that happened. So this is. It appears to be the current day of the Watchmen universe, that being like 2019 in Watchmen, and what's going on. And from what I can tell in the trailer, intriguing things are going on.
Yes.
And I said before, we talked about Doomsday Clock ever so briefly.
Yeah.
The most interesting thing about Doomsday Clock for me was the very first issue when they showed the aftermath of Watchmen.
Yes.
And then once they jumped to the DCU, my interest level took a huge hit, and I thought the story did too.
Have they finished that yet?
No, it's been delayed and delayed, so I think they're on issue 9 or 10 right now, and
Okay.
they still have issues to go, and they've also been delayed. So anyway, yeah, where do we go from here? Well, the ending of the book does leave a great big door open for the future. That being Rorschach's journal being found by the publishers of the New Frontiersman, and they're going to put that out there, and all of his findings and all of his ramblings, however unreliable he was, is now fodder for people to speculate over and to ingest and consume and enter conspiracy theories abound. On top of that, Dr. Manhattan leaves Earth. He says he's going to go create life of his own somewhere, but there were some clues in that trailer that lead me to believe that he will be back in some form. I mean, he almost has to be. His absence is almost conspicuous, but there was a very one key thing in the trailer for the show that was a big clue, if you ask me.
The carnival?
No, not the carnival. Okay, the shot in the trailer where they show the Washington Monument, right?
Okay.
You thinking about it? It's got the ring. It has the ring around the top of it, like a promenade almost. You know what I'm saying? Okay. I don't have a pen nearby to show you what I'm gonna. Okay. I don't have a pen. From the ground up, looking up at that, you see a great big monument going into the sky with a ring around it. Cool visual, right?
Yeah.
What would that look like looking down from space?
The symbol of Dr. Manhattan's forehead.
Exactly. That would be hydrogen. Yes. Interesting.
Yeah.
That's a little detail.
Yeah.
I don't know if anyone got, but I got. I thought about it for a minute. Rorschach has a cult.
Yeah.
Now that is interesting.
Yeah.
That's real interesting. And it's interesting because clearly those are some bad dudes. I'm just going to put that out there. That is a dangerous group of individuals. And Rorschach is not, folks, the hero of Watchmen. He might be the air quotes protagonist in a way, but that character is super flawed, which we're going to talk about. And his line of thinking and his modus operandi is very frightening.
Yes.
And now he's got his journal got out, and it looks like these guys have been feeding on whatever he's been spitting out in that journal for X amount of years, and he's got himself a cult following. Yep. That's dangerous. I'm calling it now. That is risky business.
Kind of taking a page a little bit. I think someone maybe mentioned this to you in your Facebook feed. Taking a page from The Dark Knight Returns.
The Sons of Batman.
Yeah.
Yeah, that didn't dawn on me, so I want to give props to Matt for pointing that out. The difference is Batman was around when the Sons of Batman were formed, and he could steer them to his way and keep them in line. Rorschach's gone. So,
would you want him steering them, though?
Rorschach?
Yeah.
No, because, number one, he wouldn't play well with others. Number two, again, dangerous individual. Very, very dangerous individual. Yeah. And now he's got himself he's a martyr for a group of people. And there's just some real world symbolism there that I don't think can be denied. Like that's insert your cult here, insert your clan here, if you will, or your alt-rights or whatever. That again, interesting angle and a very intriguing detail that got my attention.
So Don Johnson seems to be heading up the police force.
Some kind of
all wearing masks. I think that may be a very interesting commentary on where we're currently at socially with a lot of police being thrown into the spotlight for any number of things. Is this a world where to be a police officer means you have to hide your face?
Not only that, not only do the average uniformed cops all wear masks, did you notice that the vigilantes in this show also are listed as cops?
No.
Yeah, they are. So on the cast sheet, when they explain all the characters, that being I can't remember their names off the top. The only one I know for sure is Looking Glass, because it's got the mirrored mask, Cobra Commander style. Like I thought was pretty sweet. And Panda. pandas listed, and it's a dude in a big panda suit who you can see in the shot when they go into the police room and all the cops are like sitting in that big conference room. You see, there's a dude in a panda outfit sitting there with all the cops. So somehow the police have embraced masked vigilantes or masked adventurers. I don't know what you want to call them, but they've got masks, like hero-esque mask characters in the police force. What is going on?
Maybe they're kind of taking it from taking a page from Marvel and be like, okay, what if superhero registration was a thing and the thing that was not rebelled against but enforced?
Yeah, it's again intriguing.
We got a quick shot of Ozymandias,
yes,
who's being played by Jeremy Irons, which I cannot wait for.
That is the most stellar casting.
Yeah,
that is like, is it on the nose? Yeah. Is it great? Oh,
yeah. Yep. Yeah.
There's just it's very intriguing, and I know because we're going to talk about all this in a second here, that the comic purists are out in full force, and it's without the permission of Alan Moore and Dave Gibbons, you can't do a Watchmen sequel. And dude, look, man, I feel you, but I've let that go. I'm long past that. If you're going to do something with Watchmen, again, this take on it in HBO is the better take. Doomsday Clock to me is the stunt. It's what you don't do. You don't put it into the DC universe and just make him like everyone else. Just make him another commodified hero. That's the wrong thing to do. Telling a sequel story with its own themes and its own ideas and its own commentary on whatever world we're living in today, that's the way you do it. And I'm very, very, very interested to see more of it. And by the way, I'm also very, very, very interested to hear more of the score by Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross, and we have not heard that yet, but you better believe I hope they get weird on it.
So let's shift now, because I think it's safe to say we're both excited about the show. Let's shift our discussion to where it all began, which is the book.
Yes.
Now, I am. It's strange because I am a fan of Watchmen. I'm a fan of a lot of stuff Alan Moore has written. I am not a fan of Alan Moore personally.
He's kind of a grump.
As a person. He's never. This is what I say about Alan Moore. Never has more talent been granted to such an incredible douchebag.
I would
maybe Sidney Crosby. You can say. No. He craps on the people and then goes and cashes their check. Guys, no. But that being said, this is seminal work. I am a fan of this book. You, sir, are a student.
Yeah,
of this book.
I've read it once a year for the last more than 15 years or so. It's great.
It came out. It was originally published in 1986.
Yep,
around the same time as
Dark Knight Returns.
The Dark Knight Returns, and these were
big year for DC.
Yeah, these were two seismic events that changed the landscape of comics.
Yes,
not just DC Comics, but Marvel Comics, all of comics. Because for the first time, the medium started to represent the world that it was currently living in
a much more real way than it had before. Yeah,
and B especially with Watchmen, took a long, hard, merciless look at itself.
Yeah,
and this was kind of the birth of the deconstruction of the superhero.
Yes,
and like we said, it's one of the best things to happen in comics. It's also the worst thing to happen in comics. But let's focus on the positive for right now. This book was a mini series. Well, probably a maxi series.
Yes,
12 issues.
12 issues.
I think anything over 6 is considered maxi.
Yeah, semantics.
It was written by Alan Moore with art by Dave Gibbons.
Yep.
And it is essentially, I don't want to say a caricature, but kind of a funhouse mirror of certain established characters in the not necessarily DC Universe proper, but characters that have been acquired by DC over the years. They're originally part of a company called Charlton.
Yeah.
Charlton.
So the Charlton characters were acquired by DC. They didn't know what to do with them. Alan Moore wrote a pitch about, he wrote the Watchmen pitch with them in mind.
Yeah.
Nightshade, the Peacemaker, Captain Atom, Blue Beetle, the Question, etc. And that was Watchmen with those characters.
Yeah.
Pitched it to DC, and they said, "Hey, we really like this. This is great, but if you do this, you're effectively breaking all the new toys that we just bought. We can't do that."
Yeah.
So he went back and he just made them into basically pastiches, or they're nods to those characters, but in a bigger way. They're also in the way that by doing so, he also makes them. By making them original characters, they're not only direct riffs on the Charlton characters, but they're also more vague, and they're more commentaries on the hero archetypes in comics as a whole.
Yeah.
So is Night Owl very much the Blue Beetle? Yes. But is he also kind of Batman? Yes. Mm-hmm. Is he also the street level vigilante that anybody could be? Yeah. Is Dr. Manhattan Captain Atom? Yes. But is he also this universe's Superman? Yes. He's bigger than any one character. Yeah. So the archetypes are all present. And then he places it into the real world, but not just like now with these characters. He goes back and says, okay, at what point did superhero comics become a thing? 1930s, right?
Yep.
That's kind of when our yarn picks up. That's when the first masked vigilantes started doing stuff in the world. And unlike our real world, in the Watchmen world, it got very popular in the real world. And there was a superhero moment in the 40s where people put on masks and costumes and did fighting crime, and they were very, very popular in the real world of this universe.
Yeah.
And then they fell out of favor after World War II. That is until Dr. Manhattan became a known quantity, and he is the only superpowered character in the Watchmen universe. And once he became publicly known, history takes a huge turn. Watchmen history takes a huge turn.
Yeah.
Now you have an actual superpowered being in the world, the real world.
Yeah.
As a result of that, America sends Dr. Manhattan to Vietnam, wins handily and easily. Vietnam becomes the 51st American state, and the world, the Cold War tensions that were very prominent in the 80s when this book was written, the Soviet Union, the United States, nuclear tensions, very prominent. They ramp up tenfold in this universe because Dr. Manhattan is basically seen as a walking nuclear deterrent. So the Soviet Union, in turn, ratchets up their own nuclear arsenal, and tensions are more tense than ever in the Watchmen world, to the point where the doomsday clock, which is the motif of the book, is dangerously close to midnight throughout the duration of the book, which means the end of the world is probably very, very, very near. So that's it was both in a fantasy world, but also in our real world in a very real way, in that it references events from our world. The JFK assassination, World War II, Vietnam. Yeah. Like I said, Richard Nixon is still president in 1986 in this universe because they've changed because of the victory in Vietnam. His popularity was so high that they abolished term limits, and he just got to be president for life, basically. So Watchmen is both its own thing, but it's also grounded in reality, or a reality. And it's written in such a way, part of the deconstruction. Alan Moore has no real affinity for superheroic hijinks, which that's not exactly fair to say, because he did write Supreme as a Silver Age Superman love letter, basically, for a good long time. However, I think overall he finds superheroes to be dangerous, or he likes to point out they would be dangerous and scary in a real world context. And Watchmen, the book, lays that out, I think, pretty well. In a real world context, these guys are probably damaged individuals and dangerous. for the most part.
Yeah. So, I mean, just kind of, I brought my copy with me.
Yes.
I've read it a couple times now. I've been meaning to give it another read.
You should. It's great.
No, obviously. I really like what Moore does with Dr. Manhattan throughout the book. Obviously, when we first meet the character, he is as what he's kind of grown into. But as we see throughout flashbacks in the book, we see his creation, and as he tries to be a superhero, we see his drift away from humanity, represented by the fact that with each flashback, he's wearing less and less clothing.
From his, when he first reconstitutes himself from nothing through a nuclear accident, he wears clothes and he's like pretending to be a man, kind of.
Yeah.
But as he realizes, and as he's kind of, he increasingly realizes what he is and what he is not, and yeah, he has less and less clothing because it just, to him, it doesn't matter. Like, humans don't matter, and the loss of clothing is symbolization. It's a symbol for his like losing of his humanity.
Yeah,
he sees himself as beyond any sort of earthly concern. And if you read the supplemental stuff after each issue had a couple pages of cool supplemental material that really fill in the blanks of the world, be it newspaper articles, dossiers, excerpts from interviews of characters in this universe, etc. And one of there's a newscast from when Dr. Manhattan was first unveiled to the American public.
Yeah.
And the newscaster says one of the guys who discovered him or something like that, or saw what Dr. Manhattan could do, like when they show him like disassembling a tank with his hand, basically. And the newscaster quotes this guy as saying, "Superman exists and he's American," like, ha, right? And then in one of the follow-up supplemental materials in one of those issues, they have like an interview with that guy, and he says, "What I actually said was, God exists and he's American." And it's like, whoa. And that is Dr. Manhattan, effectively. Like, he's been atomized and put himself back together from nothing. He lives it all time at once. He sees events unfold and he knows they're going to, but he's powerless to stop them in a way.
Yeah.
Or so he thinks anyway. He's all powerful. He's God, effectively, in this universe, or at least some semblance thereof. And yeah, the increasing loss of his humanity is a major theme in the book, to the point where at a certain point he leaves the Earth and the world freaks out because this superpowered dude is gone. And by the way, that is America's great big walking nuclear deterrent. And what do you think happens when he's gone?
Oh, yeah.
The Soviets get real antsy to intervene.
If not for a plan put together by one Ozymandias.
Yeah. Spoilers for if you haven't read Watchmen. Ozymandias was a hero. Heroes and villains are very nebulous in this book, and I think that's important to point out. And again, that's part of the deconstruction. These individuals are not broad strokes, good guys, bad guys. Ozymandias is the antagonist of the story. His master plan is terrifying in that it results in the death of millions and millions of people. But his plan, while resulting in the death of millions and millions of people, by his own rationale, will prevent the deaths of billions and billions of people, as the world was dangerously close to ending through nuclear warfare. His plan was to intervene in that escalating conflict with a rather interesting solution that, at least for a time, works. So, to him, he's the hero of his own story. Did millions of people die? Yes. Did he prevent the end of the world? Arguably, yes.
Yeah.
Where do you land on that? Well, this is where you have to kind of read the story and figure it out for yourself, because some characters make peace with it and just deal with it. Other characters can't make peace with it and refuse to bend to it, and it's up to you how righteous you want to see that as being, and they don't make it out of the story alive.
No.
Again, it's a book that makes you think. Good and bad are not super obvious.
Yeah, it really. I mean, it was always kind of there, more in Marvel than in DC, but it really introduces the grayscale into comics, and just kind of the deconstructing and the starting to look at these characters in a, what if they were in this world sense? How would they behave? How would they go about operating? And that's something that DC kind of did with, not maybe how would they be if they were in this world, but when they did their initial Crisis on Infinite Earths, to kind of just like streamline everything, because there was so much stuff out there, and just kind of get everything and do a restart. And you see, like, it's probably easiest to see in the Batman-Superman relationship, whereas pre-Crisis, that relationship is very, buddy, chummy.
Right.
You've seen like the classic cover of, they're playing baseball together and whatnot.
I love those covers.
And and then you have the post-Crisis, where none of these characters have met yet, and the first introduction between Batman and Superman doesn't go very well, because these are characters that are they believe in the same thing, but their methods of achieving it are completely opposite.
Yes.
And that is kind of a staple of their relationship going forward, large in part to, a lot of what was laid down in Watchmen. The dynamic of the relationships, more so than that these characters had with each other than what they had with the world that they live in, was affected by this story. How heroes interacted with each other is what saw a major change from this. Like, there was still, I think, post-Watchmen, there's still the belief in doing the greater good, but now that grayscale is there, you start to question, well, what is the greater good?
Yeah. Watchmen is a brilliant, tight, and masterful work on its own. And where it lands in its definitive statement on superheroes is not favorable. And, there's no getting around that. But that doesn't mean you can't still enjoy superhero comics, and that doesn't mean superhero comics can't still be fun. And they are, and they're still great. But the problem, here's where the bad part of Watchmen comes in. As great as Watchmen is, and as brilliant as it is, it was very popular. And unfortunately, a lot of people either didn't get it, or the wrong lessons were learned from it, not just by the people who read it, but also by creators who wanted to try to imitate it without understanding it.
Yeah.
And then we kind of entered the grim and gritty era, or the dawn of the gritty era started in comics, where you had increasing violence, increasing adult themes, and to the point of ludicrousness, basically, over the next 5 to 10 years. And that's a real shame, because in a lot of ways, that also happened to coincide with the big comics boom in the early 90s.
Yeah.
And that means a whole generation of comics readers were kind of brought up on this grim and gritty, without substance storytelling. And that means that's never really gone away. It's still haunting us in a way.
Yeah.
And
especially
I want it to go away.
DC.
Yes.
DC many times doesn't seem to fully understand their characters. They've gotten a lot better with Rebirth, but there's still a lot there that needs addressing. And I'm not quite sure how they can go about doing it other than incrementally in small doses to kind of get it back to, I'm not saying it has to go back to what it was before Watchmen, but like kind of angle the ship in the other direction.
Well, it's tricky because the genie's out of the bottle, so to speak. And what do you do?
Yeah.
You know, to use the parlance of Watchmen itself. Watchmen is like the nuclear bomb. Once the bomb was dropped, there was no going back to a time before the bomb, right? The bomb is out there. We now have to live with the aftermath. Watchmen was a nuclear bomb in a way for the comics industry. Likewise, The Dark Knight Returns. It was kind of like Fat Man and Little Boy right there, to be honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
And you either... Basically, there they are. There really is no going back now. We have to kind of deal with this now. How do you deal with it? I don't have the answer for you. I think some companies do it better than others. Some storytellers do it better than others. I agree with you, though, that I feel like DC has been in a constant state of overcompensation for their early Silver Age hijinks. And then once Marvel ate their lunch in the 60s and 70s, they've felt this kind of need to push the boundaries in this extreme graphic way to try and prove themselves. Like, no, we're not for kids. And it's like, you don't have to try so hard. Like, people like your characters for who they are. It's okay to just embrace them for who they are. You don't have to keep trying to pull this edgy stuff. You know, for the sake of it. We don't need that.
Yeah.
And the thing is, I don't want to, to say that it's Watchmen's fault implies some kind of, nefarious agenda on Watchmen's part, and I don't know that that's really the case. It's just a really well done thing.
Yeah.
That it can't help but be popular because of how tight it is.
It's the thing that is...
If it stunk, it wouldn't have, you know?
It transcended the medium because, even if you read comics, which I did, and you never read Watchmen, which I hadn't up until before the movie came out, you knew what the, smiley face with the drop of blood on it was. Mm-hmm. It had that resonance in it. I want to talk about we've talked about the story of it. I want to talk about the look of it.
Oh, God.
The aesthetic.
Gibbons. Dude, some people slag this book for the artwork. I can't fathom that, to be honest with you. I think this is a masterclass in storytelling. Yeah.
The 9-panel page is probably the thing that comes up the most when you're talking about the artwork of this. And it's not every page.
The thing is, it's the standard format, and it only breaks it for emphasis when it has to.
Yeah.
Or in the case of Fearful Symmetry, the chapter about Rorschach, the entire issue, if you fold it down the middle, this is hard to explain. If you took that issue of Watchmen, Fearful Symmetry, opened it to the center, every page is identical forwards and backwards until you get to the front and the back, respectively. The layouts are identical.
But Drew, I can't do that. I'll take the book out of mint condition.
You'll see it. You can tell. It's a masterstroke.
Yeah. The coloring, the pencil work is just
the coloring. That's actually. I'm glad you brought that up. The coloring at the time was intentionally done in a way that was very odd and kind of ugly, and it was done that way to emphasize the ugliness of the story in the world that it was in, and to also set it apart from anything else on the shelf.
Yeah, no, definitely. If you look at especially the comics of the time are still in those primary color stages, stuff that really pops. And this doesn't pop in that way.
No, they used a lot of greens, a lot of pinks, a lot of weird hues that were just not common at the time.
It's very, Gibbons didn't do The Killing Joke, too.
No, that was Brian Boland.
Oh, yeah, Brian Boland. You could see in the original coloring for The Killing Joke.
I prefer the original coloring, to be honest with you.
I actually prefer the recolor. But you can kind of see shades of this in the original coloring of The Killing Joke.
Sure.
But yeah, it just... Here's a tricky thing, though. It's hard to recommend this book. It's not hard to recommend this book, but it's hard to recommend this book to people who don't read comics because a lot of what the book is trying to say,
it's a commentary on comics,
is lost on you if you don't have that history with comics.
Yeah, because like I said, the characters are kind of commentaries on those archetypes. But the thing is, though, it is a satisfying narrative as well, which is why people want to adapt it so badly, because it's a cool story. And that's fair, that's fine. But again, I think you're losing the nuance and you're losing the details and you're losing the commentary if you take it out of the comic book medium.
Which happened.
It did. Talk about the movie?
Yeah, let's move along. The film that people said would never get made, which we're just not living in that world anymore. Even back then, we weren't living in that world. So many things that...
Well, what happened was...
So many things were said to be unfilmable. Lord of the Rings, Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, got filmed. It got made into movies. In 2009, we got a Watchmen movie.
Watchmen was born, the movie. It was in development basically since it was written in 86.
Yeah.
Through various incarnations, none of which were any good. Okay, let's be very clear about that. Eventually, Terry Gilliam, of all people, had a pitch that would be a post 9/11 version of Watchmen.
Okay. And
in hindsight, like I want to see that version. I want to see what Terry Gilliam was going to try and do with Watchmen. In that from that vantage point, because again, an interesting way to do it is to adapt it into a modern sensibility and have it be relevant to now, in its own form, in its own medium. Anyway, that didn't happen, but 300 made $1 gazillion at the box office, and Zack Snyder, the director, became Warner Brothers' new little golden boy.
Yeah.
And so he kind of got to call his shot for his next movie, and they were going to do Watchmen.
Which is, I mean, if you look back at the time before we knew that what we know now of how Zach likes to operate is probably a good call at the time. Because if you look at 300, he knocks out of the park with 300. Some people don't like 300 because like they think it perpetrates toxic masculinity and whatnot. I like 300 because it is a good adaptation of the source material.
It is. I don't want to get too deep into 300, but visually, as a visual storyteller, Zack Snyder, I'm not going to shortchange him. He is an excellent visual storyteller.
Yeah. And
I will say that the Watchmen film,
when he doesn't have to use color, he's a very good storyteller.
He's great.
Yeah.
Visually, he's very good. And visually, Watchmen, and in a large part because of Zack Snyder, because of the clout he had because of 300, he got to basically
take it off
the page to, for the most part, to a large degree. So it is visually slavish to the comic, and the fanboy in me sees it and goes, "Wow, that's incredible."
Yeah.
However,
poor Zach. There's always a however.
You can be slavish to the material and still completely miss the point.
Yeah.
And he completely missed the point. Watchmen is a warning. Watchmen is a deconstruction and it would really be a bad thing kind of commentary on superheroes in the real world.
Yeah.
Snyder treats them with all of the reverence you would expect. They beat people up, they break their bones, and fight scenes were added to the movie to further emphasize how cool and tough and awesome these characters are. And it's like Snyder celebrates that violence and he celebrates that world and these characters and their brutality. And it's like, dude, you're missing the point here.
Yeah.
You missed the message entirely. That's not what this is about. Like, adding in that case in point, there's a fight scene early on where Rorschach goes into Edward Blake's apartment, to the comedian's apartment. The very beginning of the book. In the comic, he goes in, he discovers that this guy who was just thrown out of a window is the comedian, a guy he knew peripherally.
Yeah.
That's it. He leaves. In the movie, he goes into the apartment, he discovers that the guy was the comedian. Then the cops show up, and we have a fight scene where Rorschach fights police, beats them up, and then leaves because we have to establish, what a tough vigilante outlaw Rorschach is.
Yeah.
It's again superfluous and not necessary. Then we have the prison sequence where in the comic, Night Owl and Silk Spectre go to prison to rescue Rorschach because the world is the world's in chaos. It's about to go down in a big bad way, and they know that Rorschach was onto something with his theory as to why. They go to rescue him from prison because he's going to be killed in prison, by the way. In the comic, they go there. Events in the prison have transpired. Rorschach has taken decent care of himself on his own. They find him. They leave. No fights, no nothing. What do you think happens in the movie?
Lots of fights.
Dan and Laurie get there to rescue Rorschach, and there's lots of big fight scenes, and we got to have fight scene.
Well, there's still the exchange between Rorschach when he's in a cell and the small crime boss. That's still in the book.
Yes, it's all there. It's fine. Again, it's all. I mean, again, it's slavish in a lot of ways, but it misses the point of it. And
Did you kind of feel this way when you first saw it, or was this something that you kind of had to process?
No, I had issue. You can feel it watching it that he is treating this like he's treating it as like a celebration, and that's just not what it's supposed to be.
Yeah,
it's like much like the comic creators and the fans that read the comic took the wrong lessons from it. So did Zack Snyder, and he made it into a movie that learned all the wrong lessons from it and put it on screen, and it didn't have the same weight at all of the comic. It didn't say the same things. It didn't have anything to say really, other than like look at these messed up heroes. These are your real heroes. Because this is Zack Snyder's worldview. Yeah. That in the real world, Batman would kill people and get raped in prison and stuff. I'm basically quoting him, by the way. I'm not just pulling that out. He said these things. This guy. I don't trust this guy to make my Watchmen movie, and I don't trust him to be put in charge of Batman or Superman either. But Warner Brothers felt that he was the guy for the job.
Yeah.
But again, visually, my God, yes,
it's great.
It's great.
Casting is fantastic as well.
The casting is great.
Jackie Earle Haley is Rorschach.
Fantastic. He's
Jeffrey Dean Morgan is a comedian. I gotta throw some shade though. Lauren Ackerman, I believe her name is. Malin Ackerman.
Malin Ackerman. Yeah.
Silk Spectre.
Not a fan. They could have. She was a little wooden. So take or leave. And the guy who played Adrian Veidt, he's no Jeremy Irons. Let's put it that way. Okay. He didn't quite get the job done for me. He was a little too slight. And then at the end, Watchmen, it takes place over several time periods. Okay.
Yeah.
And in the 1986 that it takes place in, our primary characters are all in their mid-40s, basically. And when I saw the guy they had playing Adrian Veidt in that movie in 1986, he looks 25 years old. But he's supposed to be 46 yeurs old.
Yeah.
Like, okay, no. Well,
he's the smartest man alive. He created some good skin cream.
There you go. So, the movie, I can't even say necessarily that it was well-intentioned, because I don't think it was well-intentioned, to be honest with you. Again, it was visually slavish to the comic, but it presents the material in the wrong way. Anyway,
Drew, what'd you think about the Saturday morning cartoon?
Like in The Simpsons, the Watchmen babies.
No, did you see You've had to have seen that YouTube video that's out, the intro of Watchmen.
It's done like cartoon. It's done like the Super Friends kind of.
Yeah, Ninja Turtles. Rorschach loves pizza. And, he's wacky and
well, he is. He's kind of crazy. I love Watchmen. It's fantastic, and it's super tight. I could do without any of the before Watchmen stuff that they did.
I heard the Minutemen stuff by Darwin Cook was solid.
It's Darwin Cook. I mean, but ultimately none of it none of it really informs the narrative. None of it helps the narrative.
Do you think it was meant to inform the narrative or just be another narrative on its own?
It was meant to be a cash grab, effectively.
Well,
I mean, let's be clear. That's the beauty of Watchmen. You don't need anything else outside of it. It really is. It's tight as it is. There is actually some approved, as in written by Alan Moore, supplemental materials. There were these role-playing games back in the 80s.
Yeah.
And there are two source books for those role-playing games, and Alan Moore did write them, and I do have both of them. So there is some stuff out there that is, canon, air quotes. But again, it's not necessarily needed. It just kind of clarifies certain things that might have been a little ambiguous in the book, but it's all about minor characters that aren't super important to the main thing anyway.
I think one thing, as far as the film goes, one thing most people seem to be able to get behind is the intro.
Intro's fantastic. I'll credit Zack Snyder for that. I'll give him all the marks for that. Setting up the world with the Bob Dylan song and taking the historic moments and placing these heroes in it was an excellent shorthand to establishing that this is the world but just not quite the way you know it. That was actually a brilliant stroke, and I will give Zack Snyder full marks for that.
And there've been, I believe, 3 edits of the film. There's the theatrical release.
Yes.
There's the extended director's cut.
Yes.
And then there's the extended director's cut with the animated Black
Curse of the Black Freighter.
Curse of the Black Freighter.
Just to clarify what that is for those who don't know, the Curse of the Black Freighter is a comic within the comic. So in the Watchmen world, because superheroes were a real thing in the 40s, they had a brief period of popularity, and then they became an afterthought and a joke until the 1970s. Superhero comics never took off in America in the Watchmen universe.
Yeah.
Pirate comics were the thing. So there's a pirate comic within the comic that is a running... It's basically a running commentary on the events and the state of in the pirate comic. It's the state of one man's sanity and one man's humanity as he tries to get back home after a horrific incident at sea, basically.
Yeah.
But in the meta, it's a commentary on the events of the comic itself and mankind and what we have become, more or less. So it's cool. They did an animated version of it on its own, and it was released on its own as a bonus feature.
It was like a motion comic.
Yeah.
Not like pure animated, but...
And it's pretty weird because, again, if you read it within the context of the comic, you get a couple pages of Watchmen, then they intersperse panels of the Black Freighter. And then to see the Black Freighter all on its own is kind of weird.
Yeah. It's the one thing I've always kind of bumped up against with the comic is... I'm not a fan of the Black Freighter stuff, only because when I was first reading the comic, I didn't read the comic up until about a couple months before the movie came out, because I wanted my first experience with it to be the comic and not the movie. And on my first read through, I remember I saw what it was trying to do, but every time the story started to gain momentum, that would be inserted there, just brought it to a screeching halt.
I think your take on that is probably a common one, but I think it serves a purpose. It's kind of like the Greek chorus to the book.
Yeah, I don't think it should be removed because it's obviously part of the whole. But on subsequent read-throughs, I skip altogether.
I would advise against that. I think your instinct is to do that, to try and get back to the narrative, but I think you're losing out on what it informs the narrative.
Okay. My next read through, I will give it its due attention.
Cool.
What else can we really say about Watchmen? I mean,
it casts a long shadow, man.
It casts a long shadow. Its legacy is very, very mixed bag. I mean, there's good in there, but there's also for all the good it's done, it's also done a lot of damage.
Again, I don't know that that's its fault necessarily. people took the wrong lessons from it.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying it's the fault of the material at all. But yeah, it's definitely, folks, if you haven't read it and you've been listening to us for a while, I would definitely recommend going to read it.
Yeah.
You can get it pretty much anywhere
Of course.
books are sold. And just you just need to get a trade. You don't need to track down the single issues. Single issues are not outrageously hard to find, though, if you do want to track them down. They're not super expensive either.
No, I've got them. They're not super expensive, but a trade is going to be $20 in your hand. And not for nothing, it's easier to read and trade.
Yeah. And I think you can probably get a full set of the single issues for around, like, decent condition for around $500 to $600 for 12 issues, given how old it was and what it is. That's actually surprisingly a pretty decent price. But yeah, that's our conversation about the Watchmen. And
it's just Watchmen.
Watchmen.
Thank you. Pronouns, pal.
And we're gonna wrap it up there, folks. Again, like we discussed earlier, next week's kind of not our series finale, but it's going to be the last episode for a bit, and then we're going on a break. We'll be back periodically to talk about some stuff. But you know, next week, let me put it this way: next week we're closing down the courthouse. It'll be
closed for renovations.
It will be the last courthouse episode. If you would like to send us any questions or comments to be read on that show next week, you can do so at the following locations. You can find us on Twitter at Devils Do Pod. You can go to facebook.com/Devils Do Pod. You can email us at thedevilsdopod@gmail.com, or you can find all these resources available to you on our website, thedevilsdopodcast.com. Drew, that being said, any closing statements?
Go read Watchmen.
Yes.
And we'll see you next week.
All right. That being said, folks, court's adjourned.